Alright. Hi, everybody. I'm Ronin Warlord Magni, and thank you for being on my next installment in my Newb to Warlord series. Today, we're going to talk about Righty v Lefty. And so, this is, I think, one of the concepts that a lot of people aren't super familiar with, for the fact that lefties are pretty rare within the game. And so, one, it helps for lefties to know like the theory and how to fight righties, and then as well as for righties to fight lefties, because we often just like sum it up to be like, oh well, he's a lefty, so he's really not that good, which is not necessarily true. But right, when it comes to righty v lefty, the big thing to realize is that the difference comes from the hand match, right? So I guess really quick, go to right hand. So normally, right, it's righty v righty. This is the standard fight, and we are not hand matched. So our hands are not on the same side with the sword, right? It's cross matched. And so what happens here is we typically, when we fight, you know, this is single sword or sword and board, whatever, I have to throw across Gilligan's guard, right? I have to go over the sword or around the sword, and across his body. Whereas if now we are hand matched, the swords are on the same side. And so this changes the entire dynamic of the entire fight, right? I'm not having to go across anything. Everything is already right here. And so I'll go a little bit like into the theory about it in like a couple minutes, but a lot of everything comes down in righty v lefty to this hand match, right? This is the thing that is super unique about it. A lot of the concepts that I'm going to be talking about, I'll touch a little bit on single sword, but we'll mostly focus on sword and board, because that's where a lot of fighting happens within amtgard and boffer fighting, right? Everybody likes to have a shield because they feel protected and it's fun and whatever. But, you know, the things that I talk about for the most part in single sword can transfer to sword and board, and same backwards. Florentine, in terms of application, is a little bit less relevant, because when you have two swords, there's already like this unique symmetry. As you know, I have two swords, right? We can be hand matched, or we can be not hand matched. And it also changes because now I have two things that can hit with. So in sort of my opinion, Florentine is a totally different beast compared to single sword and sword board when it comes to righty v lefty. So going deeper into hand matching, right? What does this mean? All of this blah, blah, blah. So again, everything, the swords are on the same side. We are always hand matched here, right? And so what this really means is that I have now direct access to the aggressing side of my opponent, right? I don't, if Gilligan switches to right hand, right, normally I would have to go across the guard. I kind of already covered this a little bit, right, to go and access like the outside of the arm. Go back to lefty. Now I have direct access, right? I don't even have to reach that far. Gilligan's arm is already in range. When we're fighting single sword, I can go on the outside or I can go on the inside. What happens within this same side hand match is that it changes the dynamic of the fight. And a common way that we talk about this is in the context of lanes, right? So a lane is wherever the swords are, right? So this would be the lane. This would be the inside lane because we're on the inside of the sword, or the outside lane because we're on the outside of the sword, right? And so if we come back, rotate. So what ends up happening is now there's this fight to who wants to be on the outside and who wants to be on the inside. Typically, if you're fighting on the outside and you're hand matched, you're often trying to go for arm sniping, whereas if you're going on the inside lane, you most likely want to do torso shots, because that kills people. You can go inside lane and hit the inside arm, but if you're already on the inside, like, just hit them and win, right? The other thing really quick, though, is if you're on the outside and you go low and under the guard, you can get the hip, right? But what really matters is whether or not we're out here or in here. This is going to change the whole dynamic of the fight. Everything is along this side, right? So if we just rotate a little bit, right, it'll be everything is here. That's whole thing about righty v lefty. And so let's see. One big thing to realize, though, is that, like, because everything is right here, there is now something very unique in hand matching, and that is, like, the mirrored symmetry that we have, right? Again, it's not flipped, but we're here, and so anything that I do to Gilligan, Gilligan can equally do to me. Don't take it weird. Don't make it weird, right? But, like, in terms of offense and defense, right? If I want to go on the outside, Gilligan also has the ability to go on the outside, right? It's a lot of push and pull going on. So every advantage that you have when it comes to righty v lefty, you have as well. And so the reason why I'm, like, kind of hammering this point is a lot of people that are righty that are fighting lefties are like, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do to them. Like, how do I kill this lefty? And the thing is just like, just do the thing that they're doing to you. It's like the same shot, right? Like the lefty hip scoop, right? Just hip scoop. You right? Ah, I died. The thing is I can do the same thing, same shot, but now I'm using my right hand. You just mirror it. But you know, that is really, like, the major impacts conceptually around hand matching, and then the stuff that I'll be talking about the rest of this, like, workshop class is now how we build up from here, the stance, and how we begin to engage in the fight. So first off, in stancing, right, single sword is pretty straightforward. Everybody in single sword is sword foot forward for the most part. If you're fighting off foot forward in single sword, unless you have a plan, don't. Yeah, right, whatever. If you're being goofy, sometimes I will fight left foot forward as, like, a bait, right? Because I'm, like, leading the shoulder forward, so I want them to, like, throw. Right? If I, like, throw across, well, you should block it, right? Of, like, block or hand block it, boom, right? Stuff like that. But coming to the stance with single sword, it's always sword foot forward for the most part. Now, if we choose sword and board, and this is where I will begin to transition to sword and board almost exclusively, this is where things become more dynamic and more interesting. So with sword and board, you can choose one of two options. You can have the sword foot forward, or you can have the board foot forward. And the way that, or the things that are available from there are very different. Okay, so first off, right, when talking about, like, righty v righty, I typically always go sword foot forward because, and go, yeah, switch righty, sorry. Just don't wear the gloves. I'm not, like, gonna fight a lot. I'm just gonna smash his hands.
Yeah.
This is why you should use a punch. Right. So normally when fighting righty v righty, I have my sword foot forward because I need the extra range, or I want the extra range to be able to, like, engage far away, right? But this is not the case. I don't have to, again, work around the guard or all of this board when fighting a lefty. So now switch. He's going to be really tired of me by the end of this video. So now I don't need as much range, right? Because we're already, like, everything is already here. I can hit from there, but if I switch, I can still hit the same spot. I just move my feet, right? The thing to be cautious about when it comes to sword foot forward when fighting a lefty is you expose your sword side hip more, right? So if you pump the hip out, I can, boom, I now can't hit it. The hip is protected. So if I actually want to get that hip, I have to now come closer. But, right, Gilligan made the smart choice of all he has to do is just pivot a little bit. Go back to normal. Well, like, go back to that normal stance. Right now I can hit it. I can't hit. You don't even have to turn that far. I can't hit it now. Right? That was like a 3 centimeter rotation. Or an inch and a half for those Imperial unit people. Right? But the main benefits of sword foot forward is you have range, but you expose your hip, right? So your defense in a sense is lower. But typically in righty v lefty, I don't recommend this because you don't need the extra range. Right? So when you're board foot forward, your hip is tucked away back, you're exposing the shield further. And the thing to realize is, actually rotate this way. No, like, look at me. So we want to be this way. The thing to realize is, thus, when we are board foot forward or in hand match with sword and board, our boards are facing each other, right? So, like, this part of the board, like his body, I don't really care about, right? You kind of want to be more blocked on this side, so when you're board foot forward, you're actually pushing the board up over, right? Whereas now, again, I'm exposed. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to explain? For the most part? Okay, good. Okay. But right, again, just shield foot forward, I think, is a very reasonable thing to start off with when fighting lefties or like if you're in a righty v lefty fight, because you tuck that hip away, you protect it, and your board is still protecting a lot of this forward hip. Okay. Let's see. Oh, a very subtle thing that happens when fighting lefty v righties when we talk about our stance is our alignment. Because when we normally fight, go board foot forward, or go righty. Honestly, I should be the one with the other board because I'm not changing. So normally when we're righties, right, we are our alignment just dropped the drop the board down. Our shoulders are paired up, right? My shoulder is almost like in line with Gilligan's shoulders, right? And the reason why is I kind of want to be able to get over, right? You want this board to be like the biggest protection between you and Gilligan as much as possible, or your opponent. But now switch. I'm gonna see how many more times I can just make him do this. Right? Get in the stance. Right? If we are perfectly in line, don't like move as much. Right? I have a bunch of access, but he's gonna have the same access to me. What a lot of lefties do is they take a small shift forward, and now maybe this is an easier way to show. Rotate that way, yeah, right? So normally we're like this. His foot is right here. My foot is here. Hopefully people can see that in the video. But what I will do is I will pivot my foot here. So now our feet are in line. And so what this actually does is if Gilligan goes to shoot at me, right, throw at my hip, she has to reach much farther for it. Whereas if I go now and I'm back, I'm getting hit. Do it again. You're having to reach deeper, right? So if you throw the same shot, but for me, I still have more access now. So this very subtle in line with our feet is all that it takes to change the angle, right? And that significantly benefits your guard. So something to watch out for and think about when you're fighting a lefty in the alignment between whether or not our shoulders are squared or our feet are lined up now, right? And if you go to board foot forward, right, we're aligned, but now I'm offline, and this foot is now in line with his back foot, right? So I guess you kind of want to think about your board foot being in line with their sword foot. Does that make sense? Right? That's what's going to give you the angle. Okay. Now talking about the guard. Please switch to righty.
Somebody got a counter?
Click, click, click. Okay. So typically when a righty fights, we have our guards kind of up here, right? And the reason being is because we like this high cross. Boom, straight across, right? So we typically will have our guard up higher, and then it's also like straight to this chop shot. But if you now go to lefty,
Getting good at this.
if we're lefty, if you expose or if your guard is higher, I'm not like the board should be protecting that high cross. What you expose though, because your hip is forward or your hip is more exposed, it's really easy. It's super easy. So a lot of lefties, right, will come up and a righty will have this high guard stance because this is what they're used to. And so then they'll just go boom. And then they're like, ha, next. Right? So what we should do when fighting a lefty, or if you're a lefty fighting a righty, you drop your guard a little bit. Because now, throw the hip, right? Boom. And even if like Gilligan throws low to go under the guard, it's just an easy pop out, right? And then I can counter or whatever. Now, you don't want to go like this, because if I go like this, boom, chop on the inside, right? So it's not, you're not here anymore. You're not here. You're like here, right? Also, make sure that your hand is on the perimeter of your board. If you expose out, right, I can get tagged in the wrist. If I'm here, I now have to go around my board before I can throw, right? Also, why are you hiding your hand? Because as long as your hand's on a piece of equipment, it is hand on weapon, so it doesn't get tagged. Also, talking about the guard, when we are down in this like lower guard, most people, when you're fighting like a righty, my guard is up and my arm is kind of in line, like tangentially, like this way. But when I'm fighting a lefty, I tuck my arm in, right? And the reason being is because don't tuck your arm in. No, don't move. I can hit it. Now tuck. I have to now go around the guard, around Gilligan's hand to get the shot, right? So this simple tuck will help protect you, as well as having a slightly lower guard. Something that I do as well is I rotate my body a little bit, either here or here. I'll transition from this, and that's to vary how much protection I have on my hip. And I'm not really rotating or like exposing my shoulder that much because my board is still in the way. And this is still the same whether or not you're board foot forward or sword foot forward. Okay, so now let's talk about defense and blocking, right? So as I would say in like Florentine, each side of equipment should protect that same side, right? My right sword is protecting, or my sword side. My sword is protecting my sword side. My board is protecting my board side. When fighting righty v righty, it's a bit more dynamic for me because I'm like trying to get around their guard, right? Because I don't have easy access here, so it's like this bigger endeavor, right? But now, since everything is right here, Gilligan's not paying attention. Since everything is right here, I don't have to work as hard, right? Everything is like more easily accessible. So I would say typically sword side protects sword, or sword protects sword side, board protects board side. There are instances where we break this rule. Just make sure you have a plan, right? For example, dark side, right? Dark side is my board is now on my sword side, and my sword is on my board side. Blah blah blah. Okay. Additionally, when it comes to blocking, a lot of this is minor movements, and this is the same case for all sword and board fighting in general. If Gilligan is throwing to like my sword side, I don't need to go here, right, to block the shot. I can do this, right? Boom. I'm like actually try to hit me, right? Getting hit. That's not a big movement, right? Okay, I got a little bit of a hit there. These little pivots within your hips, right? Swiveling back and forth. Those are the big, like those are as big of a movements as you need. You don't need to be moving your board to protect everything. Actually doing this, you end up killing yourself because, oh, big shot coming over here. Huh. Now I've opened up my other side and I've died. So don't do that. Other thing as well is range control and positioning. This is actually going to be the main story, or like a very big story of Lefty v Righty, because now that there's already so much happening right here, one of your main tools of protection is being in and out of range, right? So I would say first check out those videos to understand what range control is and what positioning is. But really, moral of the story is, if I can make sure that Gilligan can't hit me, but I can hit Gilligan, then I win, right? And vice versa. Also, it depends on like where Gilligan's sword is relative to my guard and all of that sort of things. But I'm not like, I think those sort of material or that sort of material is better suited for an entire video. So check out my prior stuff. Okay, so that's the main point of blocks and guards, right? It's a lot of this and a lot of this, right? This rotate, or this like sort of swivel, this rotation, and then here. It's not a lot of movement, okay? And also, this is kind of the same case for when it comes to righty v righty. Like the smaller movements that you make, the more time that you save, and then your like counters can be faster. All right, so now offense, right? This is probably the point that everybody has been waiting for because they're like, how do I just hit them? I just need to hit them. Okay, so I'm gonna do this from, I guess kind of like this side. There's really like 4-ish shots that a lefty throws. I guess you could like go up to like 6, but they're really all different sort of variations. The main spots that lefties are going to throw for is arm, right? Low arm, high arm, hip, and then that straight shoulder. Okay? So, huh?
No high cross?
The high cross is very specific. It's more of a circumstantial. I wouldn't say it's bread and butter. I think I cover it in a little bit. Okay. But again, like when I'm fighting a lefty, it's a lot of this and that. It's just working this side. Okay. So what do we do? So there's first off the straight chops. Boom. That's it. Just chop them, either on the inside or on the outside, right? I very often, you're not going to be able to get away with just a straight chop of just throwing straight down. You're often going to have to put like a little bit of a wrap on it, right? So a full wrap that's when I'm having to go around and then I flip my wrist over, right? And that's the point of that, is so I can get the sword in the right angle to be pointed into Gilligan. Whereas the chop, I'm coming straight down, right? And so this is like more hitting his knuckles. And then the full wrap is this. The alternative, or like the middle point that you can do, is the flat wrap. Why'd you block it? You're not supposed to block it, right? And so all I'm doing with the flat wrap is I'm just dropping my sword, right? I'm just doing this. That's it. Okay. This gets a little bit into the strategy, but a lot of Lefty v Righty, in my opinion, is arm sniping. It's because you want to sort of whittle down your opponent, and you have to be very careful about it because you guys are both shooting on the same side. So if you overexpose, well, you're actually supposed to block that, right? I'm overexposed. My arm is now exposed, and Gilligan can counter very easily, right? So you have to be very careful and dynamic about the way you like set it up. Okay, so chops, wraps. Last main bread and butter shot is your hip scoop. I will cover secondary shots as well. But this is, oh man, you get a hip scoop on a lefty. Oh, chef's kiss. This is, again, my favorite shot, right? Where here, you come in, right? I come down and up. I'm scooping the hip, making little like ovals over here. And again, you're trying to hit right here. If Gilligan is board foot forward, it's going to be harder because the board's in the way. So you may want to step like offline further so you can hip scoop. What are you doing? Okay. Right. If Gilligan is already sword foot forward, I don't have to work as hard. Again, right, our feet are, I'm already offline a little bit in terms of alignment. Boom. I don't know where you're exposing it so much. Yeah. But the point is that hip is further, or it's closer towards me, so it's easier to hit, even though I am board foot forward. My sword foot is back, right? I can hit him. I can still hit him. But again, this is better defense. My arm is less exposed, right? You see that? Okay. Other very good lefty shots. The pocket stab. There's two variations of this. You could do the bicep stab. Just don't expose it so much. Gosh. Go on a real guard. Go on a real guard. There you go. Right? So there's two variations. Gilligan is a big boy. So I can stab Gilligan right here in the bicep. It's really fun when you dead arm them. Again, right? I am offline just a little bit. My board foot is lined up with his sword foot. Boom. Just stab. If I now want to do the pocket stab, I just raise a little bit. An important part about this is, put the guard up, is I'm going around the guard. My sword is pointed down and in. If you begin to drift out or like more linear, what's going to happen, like go on the actual guard, I'm going to glide. So the more I tuck in, the better I'm going to be able to actually hit him. So often what I'll do is I will offline step to get into that pocket or the bicep. Typically, right, I want to get the actual chest because then I win. But if I get the sword arm instead, that's not terrible because I can just clean it up. All right. So that's your main pocket stab. Again, all I'm doing is just boom, extending out. A lot of people will throw this shot like closer in range because then it's like harder to read. If you're out here and you go like this, that's a lot of motion that can be easily seen. And the only thing that Gilligan has to do to block it is rotate just a little bit. Right? It's very easy for that shot to be blocked. Additionally, there is the rising chop. So this is one that you can get when your opponent's guard is just a little bit too low and unsuspecting. Yeah, that's kind of good. That's fine. And so what you do is you come in and you just pop up. Right? I'm not throwing my arm, or I'm throwing my arm with it, but a lot of power is coming from my hips. Oh, I missed. Boom. Right? I'm actually tucking in just a little bit. Depending on how strong you are, I'm not a strong human being. So I have to throw more from my hips. But if you have like swole arms like Gilligan, and you just like can curl 50 pounds, yeah, you can probably just like obliterate somebody's forearm by just being like, hurrah! This like rising chop is really good because a lot of people don't expect it, but you're only going to be able to get like a couple. You're only going to get it like once or twice on somebody, and they'll like remember that forever. The last one is the dark side. This is another one of like a lefty's like favorite things to do. Righties typically don't throw dark sides on lefties because we're used to throwing dark sides on righties, and there's now a board here, right? Like, what am I? Okay, I guess really quick. The whole point of a dark side is to counter, in righty v righty, is to counter a high cross. High cross, and then Gilligan, being a righty, would throw a dark side, right? But there's this shield here. How the hell am I going to do that? So with the dark side, and you're fighting a lefty, there's two main spots that you want to hit. We'll actually rotate for this one. I want to hit either this hip, or I want to hit the shoulder. Don't ever throw straight across because I'm gonna have to deal with this board, right? Throw to whatever is the most open. So how do I do that? What do I need to do to get the dark side to land? If I want to throw for the hip, I want to get the board to move up and over this way. If I want to throw for the shoulder, I want it to move over and down, right? So what often happens is step over here, act like you're throwing to get the board to move. Boom, right? Or boom. If you can throw it like that. This is the angle that you can throw and how high you can throw is going to be dependent on your piece of equipment. I have a punch shield, so I have like maximal movement, right? Whereas Gilligan has a strap shield and like try to throw the high dark side, the high dark side. That one. Just try it. Yeah, right. See, but the difference with Gilligan is that he has like superb defense. Get out of here. Also, one of the other shots that Gilligan talked about was a high cross. I typically don't like throwing high crosses because, well, against lefties, because it's like very threatening, and lefties often expect high crosses to be thrown against them because righties, it's just like ingrained in a righty of like, what do? I throw a high cross. But lefties typically don't take high crosses seriously because they're like, it's like, I have a board there. I don't even have to move it. Like, okay, sure, go for it. And then I've thrown this high cross. I've committed. This is where you hit me. I'm armed. This is your line. Right? But you can throw high crosses if you're smart about it. This is kind of like a hero shot that Warlord Shepherd does. And so what happens is he's here, and then he steps low and down. And so when, or let me switch sides. So we're here. Get in a real guard. God. Please be bored for 4. This will actually help me land the shot. Again, really quick, this is going to be really hard for me to actually land the shot because Gilligan has a dome shield. If he had a flat shield, oh, thanks. If he has a flat shield, it's going to be easier because the board isn't going over his shoulder. But for the setup, right, here I am. I'm going to, my guard is low against the lefty. I'm going to tuck down and then over. I'm not actually throwing like this because if I throw the board or the sword this way, I'm actually exposing my arm, right? So you can counter and snipe me, right? But if I'm like this, boom, my arm is tucked away. My head is kind of in the way, and my board is pivoted towards the board side or the shield side, so it's less of a threat of getting countered. I don't have a great track record of throwing that shot because I don't want to hit people in the face that much. But for the lefties that can do it, it's really cool. And go be an anime superhero. Go for it. Okay, so those are kind of your main shots for a lefty or lefty v righty. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy when it comes to fighting, sort of broad overview conceptions, talking about engagements and disengagements, and then we'll be done. So the main strategy typically within righty v lefty is, again, I kind of already said this, it comes down to arm sniping, right? If I can whittle down like very easily my opponent, he's now armed, and then he either has to switch or do the funky like board and sword sort of situation, which isn't very like elegant at all, right? This is a much easier fight to win if they're already armed. So it's going to be a lot of arm sniping. It'll also be a lot of block strike, right? So oftentimes what'll happen is I'm going to throw out, boom, right? Or, if Gilligan does it to me, right, we're trying to get on the inside. One thing that I like to think about, or the way that I've conceptualized a lot of righty v lefty, is high versus low, right? So this is where, okay, I guess really quick, I'm a very aggressive fighter, right? And so I'm very like happy to get like in the grind and be like right here, ha ha ha, right? The thing that I like to do is I like to throw super low, but I will pump my arm down. And so even if Gilligan, when it comes to hit scooping, typically whoever throws lower wins, right? But okay, now here we are. What's Gilligan gonna do? If Gilligan continues to go for my like to counter my arm, I'm throwing this shot a lot. Or what I'll do is I'll throw low and then I'll throw high, right? So it's low. If I like to throw a lot of low shots to get the hit, if I'm realizing that the low shots are no longer landing, I'm going to begin throwing high shots. Or if they won't let me get the outside lane, I will throw low and out and then throw in and high, right? And the whole point of that is to get my opponent to move their guard out and overexpose themselves. And so you can do that as well with just block striking of like throwing and then blocking, boom, chop. I mean, I got hit in the hip, but oh well, right? Or you can throw, come on, throw, stab, right? Stuff like that. This is very stationary. We would typically be moving a lot more. Additionally, with corkscrew, or there's this corkscrew shot that often happens. So just drop the board. And so what it is I'm actually trying to target the inside arm, right? Or the inside chest. And so what it is I will skirt the hand and chop. This is often called a lefty backhand, right? I'm doing this righty, but again, everything that I can do to a righty, or everything that I can do to a lefty, a righty can do to me, right? And so all I'm doing is I'm skirting and chop. That was really loud. If I'm a little bit closer in range, I can chop around or screw around and then shoulder chop. But this is really exposed. And the whole point of this is to pull the guard out and over so I can chop it. The other variation, and this is one of my favorite things to do against a lefty when single sword, is I will do the same thing, but it's now more exaggerated, where I'll come out here and do a full wrap and do a straight chop. This is a really strong shot to do. And if I really want to like put additional insurance on it, I will go and then rotate my hips with it to provide additional power. And the whole point, let's switch sides. Whole point is to hit right here. Swoop, and flat chop. Or, you know, if Gilligan has the board, go out, right, and in. Screw down, and then what should happen is Gilligan will open his guard and then chop in. The other thing that you can do if somebody is like really responsive, you don't even have to throw the full thing, is you can do it like this, right? It's more of a pump, and then you throw down. Does that make sense? I hope you throw a lot of these. Okay. But again, right, overall strategy is a lot of arm sniping. It's a lot of black strike. And then, again, like trying to get your opponent to overextend so you can really make your openings that way. And then now we'll talk about the engagement and disengagement really quick. So how do you close really on a lefty? So, you know, Gilligan's over there, I'm over here. Typically, I will start off in sword foot forward because even though my hip is forward, Gilligan's over there. She can't really hit me. I can't really hit him. So in this situation, I want most of the range, or as much range as I can get, right? So what will happen typically is I will be here. Let's actually shift so people can see the sword sides. Is I will be here, right? Our sword feet are lined up. And then what I will do typically is I will step in. Right now, my board foot is in line with Gilligan's sword foot. This is the whole alignment that we were talking about. And I'm now here. We are ready to grind. I like to fight in A range, right? But not everybody likes to fight in A range. So sometimes I will still pump my board foot forward and go out. But again, I like to do a lot of stance shifting. When I started fighting a lot of lefties, my issue is that I would engage and continue to engage with my sword foot forward. And that's exactly what happened. I would overexpose my hip and I would die. Or I would expose my arm a little bit too much and I would die. Simply switching to board foot forward gives me a little bit more protection. And also, if I'm over here in line with Gilligan versus over here out of line, it changes a lot of the angles of the fight. Okay, so stance shifting in the engagement is really important. I would, if you really want to look at like actually closing distance and stuff like that, go check out my range control video and my positioning video. Lastly, disengaging, right? Every time that I've talked about sword and board and disengagement, the number one rule, if you are in a oh shit moment, is to move into the board side. Don't just be like, hit me. No, you move into the board side. Why do we move into the board side? If I move into the board side of Gilligan, I'm moving away from his strike surface. And this is especially important that we are hand matched, because if I try to disengage this way, I am actually giving more of my body to Gilligan, right, to my opponent. So a lot of disengagement, again, go into the board side. So this is to your left, or if you're lefty, to your right. Lastly, another thing that you can do depends on how much you really want to work, and if this is like a tournament setting or just a battlefield, the leg sweep, right? If Gilligan is pressing me really hard, boom. And if you notice, don't go down. What I'm doing is I'm throwing that shot. This is a long sweep. I'm throwing that shot at maximum distance, right? I'm trying to hit Gilligan with the end of my sword, the last like 2 inches, right? So I can throw it this way, or I prefer throwing, or I'm more comfortable throwing it sword foot forward because I can step out and take a bigger step. Everything else in between the actual engagement, you're just going to have to sort of learn it on your own. Practice. Good practice makes perfect, not practice makes perfect. Good practice makes perfect. But hopefully everything that I've presented within this class should be able to give you a leg up in your next righty v lefty fight. So that's all I have for today. Thanks, Gilligan, for dealing with all of my switches. But yeah, thanks, and I look forward to seeing you on my next Newb to Warlord series. Thanks, guys.